Now, as promised, let's bring in my old congressional colleague, the gentleman from Colorado, Tom Tancredo. Tom and I spent some good years together in the House. We tried to get him straightened out on immigration, including, ironically, the guy who was the vice presidential nominee. Tom, maybe we'll get to that. But let's talk about what Kellyanne Conway had to say about Mike Pence and his preparations for debating. They're a little different than what Donald Trump did for that opening presidential debate. Here's Kellyanne.
I've worked with Mike Pence for a number of years as his pollster and senior advisor, and he has been doing mock debates with Governor Scott Walker, and he's been preparing with the senior staff. And I think you're going to see tomorrow a feisty Mike Pence take on the record of Hillary Clinton and hold her accountable for the failures of her policies as Secretary of State.
So Kellyanne, in laudatory terms, basically telling us that Mike, and there's no shame in this, because you and I guess, fall into this. We're recovering members of Congress, but we came up into politics in a traditional way. And running for office every 2 years, it takes a certain amount of discipline. Trump kind of has a natural ability to say what's on everybody's mind. Brother Pence, perhaps like you and I, come from that school of preparing in a very disciplined fashion for debates.
JD, you probably prepare in a very disciplined fashion.
Did you not? You mean it was just your natural genius that won you that seat all those days out there in Colorado?
I'm not much of a preparer, I must admit to you. I really am not. And there's a reason. I try. You get overwhelmed, at least I do. And at a certain point, I think to myself, you know, I'll never get all this stuff in. I'm going to just forget about it and try my best to muddle through, because it really is, sometimes it can be absolutely overwhelming.
And it can be even for the pros. Remember Reagan before that first debate in '84. So let me, I'll put an amendment in here on the floor, a friendly amendment at your suggestion. So here's my supposition. Although you've spent time in talk radio, Brother Pence and I did talk radio and broadcasting in a variety of ways before coming into Congress. So that preparation is something that Pence and a guy like me are comfortable with. You, like Brother Trump, are better off the cuff. But I guess, what do you think, knowing Mike as we both do, what do you think he brings that is different and perhaps gives him an edge tonight?
Well, I don't know about you, buddy, but I anticipate this debate with far less angst than I did the presidential or that I do the upcoming presidentials. And I say that because, of course, we know him. He is measured. He is calm. He is very bright. He is a very capable person. He's a capable debater. And so I just have no fear about him doing the worst thing you can possibly do when you are a vice presidential candidate in a debate, and that is do harm. He won't. He will not do harm. And that's all you can really hope for. After all, this is the vice presidential debate, and tonight's the first night of the Major League Baseball playoffs. So who's going to be watching? I'm not sure. I will be. You will be. But I think it actually will have a pretty good audience, simply because this is such a different election.
Well, the name of this program, of course, Tom, is America Talks Live, and we've invited callers to join us at 1-877-NEWSMAX. That's 1-877-639-7629. First caller up this afternoon is Jacob. Jacob, welcome to our program. Hello, Jacob. We've lost Jacob. Well, we do have someone else, Tom, and he doesn't come to us by telephone, but instead by videotape. Tim Kaine, former governor of Virginia, current senator from Virginia, the debate at Longwood University in Farmville, Virginia. Oh, Brother Kaine is claiming home field advantage. Let's listen to this.
So it's good. I mean, you know, just gotta be myself. But I'll look forward to seeing you down there on Tuesday. It's intense, but you know, I'm calm. Things work out the way they're supposed to. I'm calm. So anyway, see you down there.
So Tom, home field advantage aside, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to be, well, maybe I do mean to be a little uncharitable to Tim Kaine. He's always grinning like a Cheshire cat. Do you notice that?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess I do. I must admit to you that I never really paid any attention to this guy up until this point. I mean, I know he's a senator. I know he was the governor. I know he was actually the mayor. I just never paid the slightest bit of attention to him. For me, he was never on the radar screen. And I'm hoping that that's the case for the rest of his life. And
Okay, the guys in Virginia, they can notice him a little bit, but just have him finish second best. Okay, although a lot of people say the vice presidency is a job. What was that play, the musical in the Depression era of The I Sing, where the vice president was a guy by the name of Alexander Throttlebottom, and he would wander in and off the stage to offer comic relief. But, you know.
Well, wasn't it, what was it, Truman that called it a bucket of warm spit?
Oh, no, actually, John Nance Garner, who had preceded. Okay. And the reason why John Nance Garner, as a conservative Democrat from Texas, he had a little difficulty with FDR when FDR decided to stay for a third term. So thus the family-edited perspective that the vice presidency is not worth a pitcher of warm spit. Yeah. It is believed he said something a bit saltier to those in attendance. Look, there's another story aside from the vice presidency, and before we get into all this joking about the number 2 spot, it is worth noting in our history, on average, there's a 1 in 5 chance that a vice president might ascend to the presidency under duress, the death or the resignation of his predecessor. So this is serious business. However, there is a story from our third branch of government, from the judiciary, the Supreme Court shutting down that request from President Obama to rehear that case on his executive action on amnesty. Tom, this is most welcome news.
It most certainly is. And it, among other things, JD, it really points out how incredibly important this election is, not just because of all of the issues that these guys bring up and that woman brings up each time, but it is because of the Supreme Court. What happened yesterday when this occurred is a perfect example why we have to care, why it is indeed, it's the Supreme Court, stupid, right? I mean, if there's any issue that matters at all to anybody, all the never Trumpers or almost never Trumpers or whoever the heck you are, just think about that today and recognize that 4-4 decision, what will happen to the rest of the decisions that are coming down the pike, for not just this year, but for generations to come, how this election will affect those outcomes. And don't tell me, whoever you are, I mean, I just get so furious with the never Trumpers who want to stand on this high moral hill and talk about Trump's, inadequacies. I don't care about Trump's inadequacies. Do you understand? I don't care. I care about the Supreme Court. It matters more than anything. And I don't know, maybe he won't do it right. His nominees have been great. The people that he identified as being potential nominees he'd bring forward, I know 3 of them personally. They are great. They are brilliant. They are good conservatives. I pray to God that if he's elected, he'll move on those.
And you're a great guy for joining us today, Tom Tancredo. We should also point out that Brother Tom had endorsed Ted Cruz earlier, but as you hear, Tom Tancredo is all in for Donald Trump. Tom, we'll talk again soon. Thanks for your time today. Up next, your calls and comments and more guests at 1-877-NEWSMAX. That's 1-877-639-7629. Stay tuned.